Hello, everyone. So we will get started. Thank you for joining us for the fall 2023 Georgia State meeting. We want to thank you because we know at this time, whether you're on this side of the desk as a high school advisor or if you're in admissions, this is a busy time for you all. So thank you for dedicating your time to SACAC in this way. Our theme for this year's is It Continues With Us. So you will see this theme being highlighted at all of our SACAC events as it is our focal point for our endeavors of this year. My name is Ebony Lovett. I am one of the assistant directors for college advising at Wesleyan School and also co-chair for the Georgia State meeting.
Hi, my name is Alex Thackston. I'm an associate director of college counseling at Mirror School, and we're really excited for you guys to join us today. Just to kind of give an overview of what we're doing and what we're going to cover today, these are the different sections of information that we'll cover. As Ebony said, we welcome all of you, and we're really excited that you joined us this morning, especially for any new members. Just to kind of give you an overview of what SACAC is. The Southern Association for College Admission Counseling supports and engages a collaborative network of enrollment and counseling professionals by promoting ethical responsibility, professional growth, access, advocacy, and outreach to help all students realize their post-secondary education goals. So we're all kind of working together to make sure that we can help our students that we serve attain higher education. And this year, with a focus on access, we have an opening session with Rick Clark, our assistant or the assistant vice provost and executive director of undergraduate admission at Georgia Tech, who's going to speak with us a little bit about trends in Georgia's higher education system. So Rick, thank you so much for being here with us today. Really excited to collaborate with you and to learn about what you have to share.
Okay, great. Well, are you hearing me okay?
Perfect.
Fine, good. Georgia Tech uses Microsoft Teams, and I've found that Teams and Zoom don't really love each other. And so always got to check on the conversion there with audio. First of all, great to see you, Alex and Ebony. Thanks so much for everybody taking a little bit of time today. I think that your theme is perfect. Um, this concept of doing the work, continuing the work, and also partnering together. So whether you are on the higher ed side or on the high school side, this really is a partnership, especially in our state, and I think especially right now. There are no shortage of challenges. And I think one thing that the pandemic taught us that's valuable is like it's really helpful and reasonable for us to talk about what we're fearful of, talk about the things that concern us, but we need to be cognizant of always balancing that with hope as well. And so, I think there's some reasons for us to be concerned about what's happening in higher education in Georgia right now. But I also think there's a lot of light as well. And so I'm hoping to kind of balance those two things in my brief session here with you today. So I think first and foremost, let's just talk about what has been pretty well documented over the course of the last couple of years. There are 26 public institutions in Georgia, obviously a large number of additional private institutions. But on the public side in particular, 20 of the 26 have been losing enrollment post-pandemic. And of course, we have an entire technical system as well outside of the USG. With the privates, it's also been a mixed bag in our state in terms of enrollment challenges and either growth or loss of students on the undergrad side. So in response to that, probably about a year and a half ago, or maybe a little bit more, we actually started having some conversations with the USG about this concept of direct admission, which of course many of you are familiar with through the Common Application. This concept that we have a lot of data for students, whether that be their GPAs, because a lot of these students are taking tests, through the school. We have a lot of their testing, and that's also centrally, accrued. So why can't we do a better job of removing some of the barriers for students and helping them see a better pathway to college, particularly college in our state? And so that's what, that is sort of where the genesis of Georgia Match came from. And, obviously it's a whole different conversation rather than a presentation about what's happening on the ground in high schools right now, how students are responding. But we know that we needed to change something in terms of the message around college, and what that might mean for students. And I think that what we've learned from other states and what we've learned through the Common App and others who have tried this idea of either direct admission or removing barriers is that at minimum, it gives students a clearer, cleaner pathway to the concept of college, and hopefully does what all of us talk to students about all the time, which is this idea of options and choices. And so right now, I'm sure if you're on the high school side, you're starting to have students come to you with these letters and ask you what this all means, and wonder, what that might look like for them. I mean, at the end of the day, telling kids that schools want them is a good thing. And telling students that they have guaranteed effectively admission if they just go through a couple additional steps, is a good thing. And so Georgia Max, I mean, I think the jury is out, of course, in the next couple of years, we'll have to see. Obviously, UGA, Georgia Tech, Georgia College are holistic and so not participating here. But many of our private schools, many, sizable number of our public schools are participating around the state. And I think this trend and this new concept really is a positive thing for hoping to change the narrative. So I guess going to the next slide, Alex, just to, as a reminder, that in addition to removing barriers of telling students that they have options, also the concept of waivers is certainly a trend around Georgia. At Georgia Tech, just as one example, we've continued to add waiver options for students, first generation students, students that are on free and reduced lunch, of course, through SAT waivers. A lot of that stuff's already existed, but I think now 23 of the 26 USGs are participating in the November Apply to College month. And so, for your students, this is really positive. I mean, just the ability to know not only do they want me, but it's free to kind of go through this process, I think is a really positive trend in our state. And, we all, of course, can point fingers and poke holes in where Georgia, has work to do on the higher ed side. And I don't think today is the day to get much into that. But there are some positives as well with this concept of free to apply and removing barriers to do so. Going to the next piece, I wanted to just talk a little bit about the Supreme Court case, race conscious admission. As some of you may know, I'm a UNC alum, and so this definitely, came close to home. Ironically, I was at Duke Law School on Friday speaking about the Supreme Court case. They clearly did not know my academic background, but I kept my comments to myself about and thankfully, right before UNC beat Duke in double overtime on Saturday, which again is not why we're here. In talking to a lot of our students of color, particularly students of color, faculty of color, about what this means and what this doesn't mean, if you're talking with students, and I think as you're thinking about this, if you're on the higher ed side, what I've found to be the best way to look at this is to think about the funnel, which a lot of us understand and think about and kind of do our work through anyway. The case spoke specifically to the review of students. And of course, many of our schools around the state have not been using race as one of many factors, even though it was provided for in 45 years of precedent in the court. And so nothing really changes for many of the schools in Georgia because they continue to operate the way they have. What I think is really important, though, is that we are reminded that at the top of the funnel and at the bottom of the funnel, the court does not speak to the ability to aggregate data, to tailor communications, to host programming for students in order to achieve institutional goals. And so, what it does speak to is the middle, right? It speaks to the review. And so, actually, Alex, that's fine. Going to the next slide. What I found is really helpful to show students and others is, they're wondering, how will you know how many Black students have applied to college this year? And the truth is, of course, we have to report that to the state and to the federal government ultimately. What we need to do is change what we see and how we make admission decisions if you have been practicing, holistic review and race conscious admission. And so this is a Georgia Tech snapshot of a student from last year who applied, and then a student from this year who applied. as you all know that work on the high school side, of course, kids are putting that information in, but they also tell us like if they're Methodist or not. And there's many things that schools don't map over to the file they review, right? And you get to bring over what is important to you, and that varies from institution to institution. But what the law now says is you need to ensure that you don't do this. So, I think it's really helpful and important for people to kind of understand what did we see and now what do we see. But that doesn't mean, and the court doesn't speak to aggregation of data and the ability to report out. And so, people like myself around the state will still continue to be able to say, are you up or down in Latinx students applying? I can tell you we're up about 10% overall for applicants and 15% for Black applicants to Georgia Tech this year. And I think what's going to be really interesting to kind of watch is how that kind of moves through the funnel. But there's a lot of confusion around this, but maybe this is a way to kind of help students understand it and for colleges to think about what they can and can't do. Going to, I think, my last quick topic here, and sort of a trend that's happening is this idea of like, how is AI coming into the conversation, both at the high school level and at the college level? For colleges, Georgia Tech published guidance around this for students. And I do think that if you're representing a college, it's important to kind of think about if you have essays or writing or interviews as part of your application, what guidance are you giving the students, or are you going to adopt a policy, one way or the other? Machine learning is a whole different conversation. There's a lot of speculation that schools are using AI to make admission decisions. And I think that, you could argue that's kind of true for schools that use formulaic admission. In many ways, that is what they're doing. They're scraping data in order to render decisions. At the holistics on a more selective side of things, that is the beginnings of that are starting to happen where, like schools that might have previously calculated GPAs or schools that might have used humans in order to figure out what's the highest math that a kid took. We are at a point now where machine learning can actually bring that in, and that frees up human time to focus on delineation between students or recruitment of students, which of course now is more important than ever. On the high school side, hopefully if you're a counselor, you've started to do some A/B testing of your recommendation letters, because in talking to many counselors around the country, it's saving a lot of time to start to work with AI in order to try to see, where you can get started on putting in student information to write recommendation letters, or at least get the ball rolling, which is exactly what we're talking to students about in their essays, their activities, creating outlines, etc. So I'm hopeful everybody on the call has spent some time doing this and also starting to think about how you might want to coach and teach your students about how this might be really helpful. At the end of the day, none of us want the writing letter recommendation, the writing of essays to be painful or to be a gauntlet. And if there's ways we can be more efficient and get to the same outcome, then I think all of us are in better shape. Because if you're at the high school level, and as a person that's got a high schooler and a middle schooler, we want you more available. We want you in the hallways. We want you able to be sitting down with kids and not hold up writing letters of recommendation. In talking to folks, they're telling me a quarter. They're cutting their time in a quarter to 3/4 of the time in order to kind of get to the same ultimate end result. So hopefully you're toying with this and testing this. But if you're hearing from faculty members on the high school side, especially board members, et cetera, about colleges using this in large part to render decisions, I think you can allay a lot of those fears and tell them that's absolutely not true. I believe that was my last slide, and I think I'm also out of time. So hopefully that's helpful. And if there's anything, Alex, that you wanted me to also hit on, I'm happy to. But just, again, a big thanks to everybody for your time today.
Thank you so much, Rick. We really, really, really appreciate you and your insights. I think this is very helpful for all of us as educators to make sure that we're serving our students as we can as everything continues to change. So thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing this information with us.
Absolutely. Thank you. Good to see you all.
Thank you. So now we'll be shifting gears a little bit and allowing the SACAC committees to introduce themselves, the purpose of their committee, and give any updates or initiatives that they may have. We will call the committees up in alphabetical order. In the absence of the following committees, I will be giving their update. So first up, we have the admission practices. The admission practices committee is led by Malika Lindsay. She could not be here today with us. The purpose of her committee is to educate members of the association on NACAT's recommended best ethical and professional practices. Although the committee does not have any updates, Malika wanted to let you guys know that she will be happy to help you if you have anything that you face that have ethical dilemmas or any questions about ethics when it comes to admission. So, and her contact is there on the screen. Next, we will have the advancement committee, which is led by Julia Hodge, who could not be here today as well. And her committee exists to develop and implement strategies for building partnerships that financially support SACAC in fulfilling our vision. The committee seeks sponsorships for specific SACAC programs conducted each year, which include, but not limited to, summer seminar, dry run, workshops, counselor participation funds, and of course, the annual conference. Julie would like me to share that we're still looking for sponsors for the Raleigh conference. So if you or your office, or if you know of a vendor who would like to sponsor us, definitely send them to Julia. That leads us to our next committee, which is the annual conference committee led by Anita Hua, Sean Kennedy, and Diana McAfee. The conference will be in Raleigh this year, March 24th through the 25th, and will be at the Raleigh Convention Center. Session decisions have already been the deadline to submit proposals have already passed, and decisions for those proposals will be released mid-November, so stay tuned for that. Mid-December, actually, stay tuned for that. Registration opens up mid-December, early bird registration. And then keep an eye out for volunteer opportunities. Next up, we will have the communications committee, and Pamela will give us updates on that. Is Pamela here? Or is Celeste here? Okay, I guess we'll go to the next slide.
We just wanted to give quick communication updates real fast. Connect with SACAC members because they connect with one another. It's a great way to connect with association leadership, to learn about trends and news. The primary work of communications is to compile and distribute information through the Southern Scope, which you all receive via email. And if you'd like to get involved, please consider becoming a member of the Communication Advisory Board. You can submit your pictures, story ideas, event summaries, or any suggestions to communications@sacac.org. All right. And next up, we've got our Governance and Nominating Committee with Miss Maya Walker.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm pulling up our updates now. So, hi, everyone. I'm Maya Walker. I work at Agnes Scott, and I am a member of the Governance and Nominating Committee, which is ran by Jonathan Farrell. So, essentially, what we do is we are kind of responsible for nominating the SACAC board and different awards that you all see at the annual conference are also a part of who we nominate. We also talk through policies and different things that affect SACAC, and we vote on certain things that need to go towards the overall community, the overall SACAC community. So just so that you know what's going on with us, applications to serve on the SACAC board and SACAC award nominations go live later today. And there are two pathways for board service. A member can apply on their own, or a member can nominate another member. When a member is nominated, Jonathan will reach out to ask them if they want to apply. The deadline to nominate is Tuesday, January 8th, 2024. And the deadline to submit applications is Tuesday, January 12th. So just making sure that you know there's those two pathways that you can either be nominated or you can apply to be considered for the SACAC board. The deadline to nominate members for the SACAC awards is also January 12th, 2024. Right now, Jonathan is in search of a couple of people to join the governance and nominating committee. The charge for this group is to review board applications and slate members to open positions and to select award recipients. So basically what I said. I also will say that it's a pretty low time commitment. We meet in February, and we have like one big virtual meeting that lasts a couple hours, and we just go through all the nominations and have a conversation. And it's really nice because we get to learn about new SACAC members and what they offer, what they've done in previous experiences that could be great for SACAC, but also we get to meet each other and kind of learn more about each other and how we have served SACAC in a myriad of ways. So if you're looking to be a part of that, you see our email up there. You can always email me or Jonathan if you have questions. And that's all from governance and nominating.
Thanks, Maya.
Next up, we will have government relations with Aaron Layton. Is Aaron on the call? Okay, next slide.
I will be doing, sorry.
Okay, so.
Sorry, I'm here on behalf of Erin. She got called into an emergency meeting this morning, but we just wanted to give some updates to the SACAC Legislature for Georgia. Our tentative date currently is going to be February 7th. Once we finalize our venue, once we get a go-ahead from the institution that we're looking to host it. We're looking to go back to Georgia State this year. So once they give us the A-OK that we can have our facilities for that day and time, we will go ahead and get that out for people to start registering. We do need volunteers. So if those who are still interested in helping, please fill out the volunteer form so we can make sure that we have a very successful Georgia Legislative Day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. All right, next I'd like to introduce Justine Okerson to give an update on the Grants and Fiscal Oversight Committee.
Hi, thank you all so much for inviting us to be here today. We're super excited. Our committee actually had a name change to the Finance Committee. It's very exciting. Again, my name is Justine Okerson, and I'm joined here today with Iris Martinez, and we are the Finance co-chairs. And the Finance Committee is very important because it is really dedicated to making sure that we are giving funds and giving an effort to reach counselors and students who have long been underrepresented in our professional association and in college admission process in general. So that's kind of our mission and our background. There's two really important things that I wanted to talk about today. First is the Counselor Participation Fund. We often call it CPF. And that is a way to get financial assistance to attend many of our different professional development events. So obviously annual conference, summer seminar, sweet tea tour, and dry run. And we do provide financial assistance every year for all four of those different events. This year is a little bit different because the conference ended up being a little bit earlier in the year. So we did our CPF funding for the conference. That deadline has passed at this point. We are hoping to, yay, Jackie. We are hoping to have those decisions released right after Thanksgiving, but in plenty of time for people to register for the conference, as that should go live mid-December. But we did want to let everyone know that it's not too late to apply for CPF for the other opportunities. So summer seminar, sweet tea, and dry run. Keep in mind that those applications should go live and be ready for everyone to start applying in late January is what we're assuming. And you can kind of take a look at our website. I'll drop that into the chat in just a second too, just so you can see what that looks like. Preference does go to counselors working in public high schools or working for CBOs. But so that's the first opportunity. The second one is Extending the Dream. And Extending the Dream is a really great opportunity for professionals to do a special project in their community to serve college-bound students. So generally that application opens in February 2024. If you're interested in that, but maybe don't know a ton about it yet, no worries. We usually do a webinar every year in January or February, just to help people to learn more about what kinds of grants, what kinds of things have been accepted in the past, to help you to think about what you might want to do later this spring or summer. So that's all for us. Thank you so much for having us. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you.
Next up, we will have Inclusion, Access, and Success Committee, led by Juan, and he will give his updates.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see so many friendly faces on here. So I lead this committee along with Lucy Smith from Charlotte Latin School. And just to give you a quick overview of what we do is we focus on everything related to inclusion, access, and success through programming for our membership and programming and opportunities for our membership, as well as those that we serve. We are also in charge of those social media posts that you might see on Facebook and Instagram. So we really appreciate the likes that you all give us as they relate to what we do. We could go to the next slide just to give you a couple of updates. So this year we reimagined the way we looked at the virtual book club, and we acknowledged that the fall is a very busy time for all of us. And so we reimagined it. And what we did is we did a discussion club this fall, focusing on podcast shows and other sources of media, and invited members to come and speak to those. We will return to a traditional book club in the spring. And so you should be getting information on that, but the book that we will cover will be So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijeoma Oluo. So just be on the lookout for dates on when those discussions will happen. In the spring, we're also, college admission workshops. Many thanks for those of you who have been part of these programs, those who have volunteered your time to offer your knowledge to our constituents and to our families that we serve. We've been pretty busy this fall with these, but we are reimagining also what we provide in the spring. And so we are hoping to do a series of workshops around minority serving institutions and single gender institutions as well. So if you are interested in helping with any of these, please don't hesitate to reach out to us in ways that you might be able to help. Additionally, we did return to in-person college admission workshops last year. And so last year, Vina Rao was in charge of that in Georgia, in the Atlanta area. So many thanks to you for that. This year, Sumana Maudgal will be the one that will take the charge. And if you are interested in volunteering or helping with that, I just entered her email in the chat, and we will also be sending more information as we have more details on how you might be able to help. And then at the conference, the Saturday before the conference actually starts, so the 23rd, we will have an outreach program. So it's our in-person, if you will, at the conference college admission workshop. So be on the lookout for information on ways that you could help and volunteer for that also. And I think that's all I have in my notes. And thank you all, and have a good rest of your week.
Thank you, Juan.
Thanks, Juan. All right, next up, please welcome Shannon Barillo for an update from our Member Relations Committee. Shannon, are you with us today?
Or Brent?
I'm Crystal Livingston. I'm actually the newest member. I'm going to be filling in for Shannon today. Good morning, everyone. We are, we are responsible for soliciting, promoting membership to the association, and also making sure that there's a great transition from secondary to post-secondary education in SACAC. We have a number of updates for everyone, so thank you very much. Our total SACAC membership as of October 30th is 1,774, members, registered members. And then we have 423 free access members, public high school counselors and CBO counselors. And there's been a big shift that we've pushed for with the number of public access membership. And you'll see below that we have 85 in Georgia, which is we're the second largest member state, second to Florida, which has 457. So we're looking to continue that push for our free access members to be able to get more of our public school participation in there and give them access and all of the tools that they need necessary for professional development. Next slide, please. Thank you. We just actually had a meeting last week in which we went over
the applications for special interest group chairs, or leaders, as we should say. And we just want to thank you all for your participation, for volunteering and submitting those applications to lead our special interest groups. We do still have a number of openings, but right now we have 17 different special interest groups, and we are usually it's about 2 leaders each, but this time around, because we had such great participation and sending in applications, we decided to add a 3rd person in there, and we are looking to have some sort of transitional role so that as people roll off of their special interest leadership role, that a 3rd person can be added so that there's a clean transition in leadership. And so we're inviting a 3rd person to be sort of an alternate, also taking into consideration that not everyone can attend NACAC, so that 3rd person would be a part of the leadership team as we deemed fit. And so you'll see the listing of all of our special interest groups. Like I said, there are a number that are still looking for leaders, and we'll have all of that information to you via the email that goes out from Diana. And then we also are looking for conference hosting chair positions. And so again, we thank you all for what we've received so far, but we do have a number of openings still available. So if anyone would like to, the application is online, and you can definitely just send that our way. If you have any questions, myself, Shannon, or Brent would be more than happy to sit down and talk with you. Some people have already met with me and the team as well, asking about responsibilities. And so we want to continue those conversations. Getting involved in SACAC. So again, a lot of people have connected with us to say, how can we get involved? We want to volunteer. We want to, start our leadership journey with SACAC, which is amazing. And we do have a volunteer forum in which we shift out to you, which has some responsibilities, expectations on there. And then, excuse me, government relations and webinar presenters. We do have positions there as well. So if people are interested, there's more than enough positions open for you to actually be a part and start your leadership journey and professional development journey. Excuse me, I'm so sorry, y'all. I sound like Snuffleupagus this morning, and I don't know how that's coming across on the screen right now. But we are looking for proposals for workshops, drive-in session proposals, conference session proposals. And then if there's any revenue generating ideas that you have, please forward that our way. We're always looking to generate more revenue and to continue to build on SACAC and what we already have in place.
Thank you so much, Crystal, and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right, so the National College Fair Committee is responsible for oversight and coordination of the NACAC college fairs in the Southern region. Atlanta will be host to the NACAC College Fair will be hosting the NACAC College Fair in Atlanta on Sunday, January 21st from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Georgia International Convention Center. We highly recommend that you inform your students and families of this wonderful event where they can engage with colleges and attend information sessions focused on higher education attainment. Additionally, students can also access virtual college fairs throughout the year. They can learn more about potential dates and times of these through the NACAC College Fairs website. Currently, they have not been posted yet, so keep your eyes peeled for that.
All right, next up, we will have the Professional Development Committee with Allison North, if she's on the call.
Yes, I'm here. Good morning, everyone. Yes, I'm co-chair for the Professional Development Committee along with Courtney Vaughn. And really, it's in the name of what we do. The Professional Development Committee is responsible for sponsoring professional growth for its SACAC members. So we do have a few updates. Wonderful. So we are excited for new leadership opportunities within professional development. We recently closed the call for Sweet Tea Tour chairs, summer seminar chairs, and webinar chairs. And we had some fantastic applications, and we will be notifying those wonderful leaders soon that we have selected to lead those professional development programs. Dry Run 2024. We are so excited it's taking place here in the great state of Georgia on the Savannah campus of Georgia Southern University. I think I saw Caleb is on the call, and we are pumped for his leadership with Dry Run this year. So, or in 2024. We will be searching for faculty volunteers for Dry Run and Summer Seminar. Those will open up usually in the new year. We have a location for Summer Seminar, but we're not ready to disclose that information just yet. But here's some information on what those entail. Summer Seminar, it is a 4-day workshop. It will be hosted on a college campus. We do know that it's staying on a college campus this year. So if you are a new professional, or if you are a new professional within the college counseling side, we do encourage you to sign up, be faculty or be an attendee. Also, there are some college side folks that can be faculty members as well. And then Dry Run, of course, is that 4-day workshop for new admissions professionals. And we always encourage faculty applications to come through, as well as new people just to get involved. There's so many ways to get involved with professional development. So please take us up on those opportunities, submit to be faculty or attend either one of those. And I think, oh yes, Sweet Tea Tour. Again, this is a 5-day tour. We are stoked. It's going to be in South Carolina this year with a lot of stops along the way. I think an email went out last Wednesday with all the stops. We're super excited to get back to South Carolina and ready for that new leadership on Sweet Tea Tour as well. And for the annual conference, of course, it's going to be in March, a little bit earlier this year in Raleigh, and we are pumped for the annual conference. So please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions on how to get involved with Professional Development Committee. We are always happy to answer any of your questions. And then, yes, we do have SACAC leads. And I believe some information has gone out about that recently. And of course, our mentorship program. So thank you all so much.
Allison, quick question. Someone asked, is Summer Seminar open to independent counselors?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Allison. And I want to shamelessly plug SACAC Leads. I participated last year and it was such a really great opportunity. So I highly recommend that you all put in those applications, get involved. It's a great way to really professionally develop yourselves. So now, speaking about all of these wonderful events that are coming up, Ebony and I wanted to just kind of reiterate some of the things happening. And I know that we have some people on the call today that do want to speak as well about these. So just real fast, as mentioned, we encourage you all to inform your families and students of the Atlanta NACAC coming up. The date is set, the location is set. Great opportunity for your students to engage with colleges around not only the United States, but various countries. The Georgia Legislative Day, as mentioned, will be February 7th, and more information will go out soon about that. We do have Kaylee Havens and Amy Short on the call, who are in charge of the Georgia Drive-In Workshop. So do you guys want to chat real fast about that event?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Hey, everybody. We are hosting the Drive-In Workshop on February 27th. It will be at Gwinnett Technical College, the Alpharetta campus, which is right off 400, Georgia 400. We are looking to have a morning, it's going to be a morning workshop. So we should be finishing up around 12:30. So we're going to have a couple breakout sessions, large group sessions, and then have some breakfast and lunch as well, and time to collaborate. So registration and more information will be coming out soon, but we would love to have a great turnout. So look for that information in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And our last update will be, of course, the SACAC conference. check your emails for early bird registration as that comes out. Also check your emails for ways to volunteer. They're always looking for more volunteers for the conference in a number of ways. There's so many ways you can help Anita with that. I spoke to her. She couldn't be on the call, but volunteers for sure. So check your emails to look for ways to volunteer. Thank you.
And speaking about volunteers, Nancy Bean just left a comment in our group about how we need you to help us out with NAGAC. So if you are available on January 21st from 1 to 4 p.m., please volunteer for our NAGAC fair. We always get great attendance for that. Brent and Nancy will be in charge of the counseling center where they help students and parents who have questions. So if you want to volunteer in that section with your expertise, you can email Nancy at nancybean, and that's BEANE 99@gmail.com if you can volunteer. So thank you all. All right, and so wrapping up today, we have a closing session focused on need-based aid in Georgia. So with a focus on access and inclusion for our Georgia students, we wanted to invite a speaker who could talk a little more about the lack of need-based aid in our state and what we as educators can do to advocate for our students who need this for higher education attainment. Therefore, I'd like to introduce Ashley Young, an education analyst with the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute, to speak more about this urgent matter that's affecting all of our students. Thank you for being with us, Ms. Young.
Thank you, Alex, and good morning to all. I am Ashley Young, and I'm an education policy analyst from Georgia Budget and Policy Institute. What a sweet, warm introduction. I just want to say I'm just a part of the family, right? Yes. So I've been in SACAC for a few years and have gotten to know a lot of great people on this call that are doing some great work around need-based aid, and excited to introduce some of you all to this very important matter. So for our OGs on the call, just kind of taking some new facts. I'm sure there's something new I will say today that perhaps you weren't aware of. And then for some of our folks who are being introduced to this policy issue in Georgia, perhaps it might burn your biscuits like it does me, meaning that this is just so egregious. I cannot believe we are one of 2 states that does not have need-based aid, and perhaps you will see this as an opportunity to get more passionate, even more passionate about education policy. So next slide, thank you. All right, so before I get into what is need-based aid, let me just give a quick disclaimer that this figure that you see here just scratches the surface, okay? The way that we talk about equity, systemic racism is much more complicated than this picture, but it was the best visual that I could find. So if your eyes go straight to that, I just want to make that disclaimer. But let me first start with what is need-based aid. So need-based aid, as you see here, is financial aid based upon a student and a parent and or guardian's financial need. So this is when we think about the umbrella of financial aid. To begin, we think about merit-based and need-based. And so merit-based, as we know, is financial aid that is given to a student based on their ability. So that can be academic ability, that can be community service, a student may play an instrument, a student may be a student athlete, right? And so anything that's based upon their ability. But need-based aid is everything outside of that relates to the family's income. And so that is going to be extremely important for us to make that distinction today, because need-based aid, as the second bullet points out, it increases educational outcomes for most students across the state of Georgia. Now, how does that work? So when we think about need-based aid, we are providing students with an investment that they need to persist in college, right? So I know a lot of you all, if you're on the college side, one of the biggest factors that you're interested in is that first year to sophomore or second year retention rate, right? So when students are provided need-based aid, that provides support for them to persist through college and graduate. It also counts as consistent support. So let's say, for instance, a student does earn the Hope Scholarship or another merit-based scholarship. What if life happens, right? What if the student, let's say, has a mental health crisis and does not perform as well as they'd hope to, and they fall below that hope eligibility, they can possibly lose their scholarship. But with need-based aid, it is not focused, and I say we, but because I hope that I help embody what need-based aid is, but what we mean by need-based aid and how it is consistently supportive is that it doesn't matter if you have a mental health crisis. Right now, granted, there is generally some sort of a lower academic standard by which you need to, actually have the satisfactory academic standing, or good standing, good academic standing. But it's not based on having at least a 3.0 in college, which, depending on your major, can be very, very difficult, and depending on the life circumstances that you have. So need-based aid would provide much more of consistent support for students, and it would not put so much pressure and a burden on students, because they know that they would have that support through need-based aid. Just a side note, I'm actually doing some really great research that's coming out very soon, and I'll tell you more about how you can access this report about college completion grants. But talking to students across the state, students are working multiple jobs, and going to school full time. And so students are saying specifically, I just want to work one job. So just to have the luxury of working just one job is something that sounds a little bit odd for some students, but it is for many students reality. And so helping students with that consistent support and with the persistence is what need-based aid is all about. Now, why does equity matter? We can't touch any system, any part of anything in this world and that we do that is not affected by race or racism. So that's why in any process and any way in which we are looking to help students in any policy, we have to be race conscious. We have to understand that with the genesis of our country through the system of chattel slavery, Jim Crow, and all of the race neutral policies that have really affected where we are, we have to see need-based aid as a way of an educational policy intervention. So equity matters so much, and it is one of the most important, I would argue, issues that really relate to education policy and how we execute anything. And so equity matters because it can help atone for past injustices, right? It can help students who have been financially marginalized, who have been affected by systemic oppression, racism, classism, to help give them the financial support that they need to persist, to have that consistent support. So having that equity is important. So let me point you to the image here. Again, really, when I looked at this image, I said it really just kind of reflects white privilege, right? Like the person at the A is starting above. But imagine if there were barriers for the people on either side of the person in the middle, right? What if the barrier was not having access to healthcare? That is very much a barrier for students. Not having basic needs such as safe housing or having food insecurity, that's another barrier. So when we think about students getting access to college and even paying an application fee or a housing deposit, what we have to realize is that not only are there some students who have white privilege and are starting ahead of them, there are also barriers once they get started that continue to prevent students from being academically successful. So again, need-based aid, equity matters. It's going to help increase educational outcomes for all students. And again, it's very different, very distinct difference in how we approach what is need-based versus merit-based aid. Thank you. So need-based aid is urgent in Georgia. Why? Again, as I said before, Georgia is one of two states that does not provide need-based aid. And so this is not by accident. Actually, It's 2023 now. 1993 was when Hope Scholarship was established. So it's been 30 years. And just a side note, it's a lot of history here, but I will say that Hope Scholarship started out with need-based aid components, right? There was an income cap of $66,000 the first year, then $100,000 the next year, and by 1995, the income cap was completely eliminated. And so this began to create racial disparities in the scholarship attainment. So we have seen over time many changes in our public education, higher education system, because Hope just really changed a lot of things for students. And so while on the surface, it seems really great, and I'm sure some of your students have been able to use Hope Scholarship and it has been helpful. And maybe for some of your own children, you're excited for Hope Scholarship. But when we take a more critical look, what we're finding is not only is need-based aid urgent, we are one of 2 states that does not have it here in Georgia. And Georgia provides than any other state in the nation more money towards its merit-based aid than any other state. And so what we are seeing here is just this juxtaposition in the value of need-based aid and the value of merit-based aid. So we want to continue to build our knowledge and understand from these conversations just how important it is to advocate for need-based aid. And again, I want to be clear, I am not putting down Hope Scholarship. I'm making the distinction, right, that need-based aid is necessary and that Hope Scholarship has caused a lot of racist outcomes. So I want you all just to keep that at the top of your mind as you do your work. It's also urgent need-based aid because Georgia is 3rd in the nation for student loan debt per borrower, totaling around over $41,000. So if Hope Scholarship was as effective as lawmakers were hoping it to be, we wouldn't be 3rd after Washington, D.C. and Maryland, respectively. So that is a really important stat that I want us to kind of chew on a little bit, is that not only are we one of 2 states that does not have need-based aid, we are, as a state, really exacerbating the student loan debt crisis. It would help complete the K-16 pipeline investment, right? So we've already helped students get through K-12, which there's obviously still some ways in which we can invest in our Quality Basic Education Act to make sure that students have what they need and have the equitable resources in K-12. But if we get them through 12th grade, why would we not want to help students persist and help our students prepare and prepare the next students, the next generation to enter into the workforce? So I want to be very clear. I put the last bullet last because there's so many other reasons why need-based aid is urgent. I struggle a little with the neoliberal approach that we just want to, get students out into the workforce and, being very economic focused. And while that is important, what's most important is that we understand that we have to put equity first and that we're talking about basic needs, education. And then once we start to address those issues, then yes, it is important for our students in the next generation to enter into the workforce with the skills and the knowledge that they need. And so with that, I'm going to point out 2 more things that I think are important for you all to take away. So I wanted you to see what could need-based aid do here in Georgia for our students? And this is for the University System of Georgia, just to be clear. But when we look at the total, and this was in fall 2021 through spring 2022, what does it look like as students are leaving college, right? In terms of their student debt, it is pretty insurmountable. Right. This is a real crisis right here in Georgia. I want to point out that Black students in the University System of Georgia make up only 29% of the students, but they actually have the highest student loan debt average at around $373 million. So again, they make up less than 33% of the students, but they make up an even larger proportion of the student loan debt crisis in Georgia. We see white students at 324 million, Hispanic students at 64 million. And so this is a crisis, not just for Black students, not just for Hispanic Latinx students and students of color. It's an issue for white students, right? So again, need-based aid can help students from all different backgrounds decrease that student loan debt and help students persist. Next slide, please. Again, it's urgent. Look at the percentage here, and this is kind of in relation to what I was just mentioning. 55% of students in USG have student loan debt, and next, 2 or more races. We're also looking at American Indian and Alaskan Native students at 37%. And keep in mind, these are some of the student populations that have the fewest students in University System of Georgia, but unfortunately have the highest percentage of student loan debt. Next slide, please. So how could we even approach chipping away at the student loan debt crisis issue? How could we help continue to invest in our students? The education lottery reserve. So as you all know, we have an education lottery here in Georgia, and there is a lot of money in the education lottery reserves. So just to be clear, and these numbers are actually from last year, we do have some new numbers and that will come out in our report very soon. So the total lottery reserves is actually $2.1 billion. And our unrestricted is $1.4 billion. So money that has no allocation, right? And it's just sitting, gaining thousands of dollars in interest every year. So imagine how frustrated it is as you're helping your students. They can't afford college, or they are struggling with college affordability. And we have $1.4 billion just sitting. So of course, we have to have the shortfall reserve for Hope Scholarship, because this is the same pot of money in which Hope Scholarship comes out. But we have around $737 million. So that says 772, but right now we have $737 million just in the shortfall reserve, right? But again, with $104 billion in our education lottery reserve, I think the work that we are doing around advocacy is absolutely pointing to our education lottery, right? We're not using any general funds, and we want folks to know that this is very important. Now, what's next? Advocacy. The first thing that you can do, and I know you've heard a little bit about this today, is attend Georgia Legislative Day and tell your story. I can't tell your story. I was a college counselor for 7 years, right? I can tell my story and from the experience I have with students, but I want you all to be empowered to think about those conversations, those hard conversations. You're wiping tears, you're helping parents find scholarships, but you're saying, but we also have $1 billion in our unrestricted education lottery reserve. And I think that that is so important. Yes, New Hampshire is the other state that does not have need-based aid. Thank you, Rick. And so you are able and empowered to tell your story. If nothing else you get from this conversation, hopefully you'll get a few facts, right? But you are empowered to tell your story. That is so important. You want to build a relationship with your General Assembly members, right? And also I encourage you and reach out to me. I have my information here and I can help you get connected to more of these folks that are change makers in our state to pass comprehensive need-based aid, right? We are going to continue this fight. As I like to say, it's always a great day in Georgia to talk about the urgency of need-based aid. So building relationships with your lawmakers, specifically the higher education committee members who work on these types of issues. You can join Georgians for College Affordability. So we have been working over the last 3 years to make sure that professionals have an outlet to really do this advocacy work. And so you can email me at ayoung@gbpi.org. And also, if you would like to receive our higher education bulletin that comes out ever so frequently, please feel free to reach out to me at ayoung@gbpi.org. That is it for me. Thank you so much for this time to continue ringing the alarm on such an important issue, need-based aid. I, again, can be reached at ayoung@gbpi.org, and I look forward to answering any questions or connecting with you all later. Thank you so much.
Ashley, thank you so much for sharing your insights and all the information. This is a cause that's very near and dear to our hearts as educators, and it should be on all of your minds, especially with that much money that we have sitting in our reserve accounts. I hope that this burns your biscuits and it encourages you all to attend Georgia Legislative Day so that you guys can speak on behalf of your students. I'll let Ashley answer some of the questions in the chat specifically for her as we wrap up, but go ahead, Ebony.
So again, thank you guys for attending today and dedicating your time to SACAC in this way. But there are other ways you can help out SACAC. You can invite other colleagues to join SACAC, and you can go sacac.org to do that. It's $45 to be a part of SACAC. And if you have a colleague who wants to be a part of SACAC but does not have the resources, please remember our counselor fund for that. And then annual membership, it goes from September 1 to August 31st every year. So keep a reminder out for that, and you can use the QR code to get to that website.
All right.
Yeah.
So feel free to follow SACAC on any of the social media sites that you see. If you have any specific questions, you can reach out to me or to Ebony. Our emails are listed on here, or you can contact SACAC directly. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. We can't wait to see you all at the annual conference in Raleigh. Take care, stay safe, and stay healthy. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.